This is the SmashFM US Tour update. It is the Sunday here in Victoria. It is the 7th of the 1st, 2018. And we're going to catch up in a minute with Will Taylor, who has spent his day, well, he tells me he slept in the morning, but he's been out and about in New York City and made it to a basketball game as well. We'll catch up with him and find out all about that in a second. Again, just a reminder that if things are going wrong with Facebook seems to be misbehaving ever so slightly and not holding the stream. Hopefully that will resolve itself over the next few days, but we will upload the full file to YouTube, and you can watch the full episode in its entirety once we've done that. So we'll bring in Will. G'day, Will. How are you going there?
Yeah, pretty good. Yourself, Andrew? In this actually a reasonably warm day, depending on how you want to say warm, for New York winter.
Well, it's a warm day here, but it's actually quite cool in comparison with what it was yesterday. Yesterday it made it to 42 degrees, so it was a good thing that we did the show a little bit early yesterday. Today it's hovering somewhere around the 26, 27 mark, a lot more bearable as you would understand. So, but that's what's going on. So, tell us all about your day today. In particular, let's start off. Let's vary it up rather than starting with the beginning of the day. Let's start off with your trip to the basketball and to the Nets.
Yeah, what a great game was, Andrew. The Brooklyn Nets take on the Boston Celtics at the Barclays Center. A huge crowd out there tonight on the Saturday night. Considering what's been going on around New York, in particular with every subway line almost shutting down because of construction works, which is really unusual. But nevertheless, we all got to the Barclays Center in a reasonable time, which is good. Great game. I don't think if you look at the standings at the moment, look where the two teams are, you would never guess that this game was going to be closer than what it got. Just like the other three occasions there at the Barclays in the last three games, this was no different. Came right down the last minute, came right down to the last couple of seconds, and the Boston Celtics managed to win by a point at the end to keep themselves in top spot in the Eastern Conference. Brooklyn, a heartbreaking loss for them, but I guess their luck was going to run out eventually. And unfortunately, it ran out tonight. So, but I must say, great crowd as always. And Aaron Baines had a fantastic game for the Boston Celtics. Started in the starting lineup for the Celtics and didn't disappoint the Australians. He had 10 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 block shots throughout the night. Played about 20 to 25 minutes in the game. Got into a bit of foul problem in the third quarter. Got into 5 fouls, of course. Here in the NBA, it's 6 fouls before you get fouled out, not 5. So, so it was a pretty good game, and I thought, of course, the superstar, Kyrie Irving, really was the difference in that game. 22 points for the night. Really proved to be the difference between the two teams tonight, as the Brooklyn Nets fell short tonight against the Boston Celtics.
So it was your second visit to the Nets. Again, the same sort of crowd in attendance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because it was more Celtics crowd than it was the Nets crowd tonight. The last game when I went to, which was against Minnesota. It was a fantastic game, but there was more Nets crowd than Timberwolves crowd. So tonight was more Celtics crowd than the Nets crowd. So, and you have to understand that Boston and New York is pretty close by. So most of the Boston Celtic crowd would have came down during the day to get to you. This was the final play. We'll just watch this. This was the final play of the game at 87-85. Which Brooklyn missed the final shot, missed the tip back, and the Boston Celtics ended up winning by 2 points, 87-85. So 2-point win was for the Boston Celtics. So I tell you what, as I said, there was more Boston Celtics crowds than there was Nets crowd tonight. So who knows if the Brooklyn crowd, if they had a couple more fans out there, that result might have changed. But we'll never know now.
Right. So you also spend a bit of time out and about in touring different areas of the city, and in particular, you went to the World Trade Center.
I certainly did. So I went down to Lower Manhattan on the way to the Barclays Center, and I guess to describe it, it was something one of my family members have been to, and something that they recommended me to go to when I was in New York, and I did that. I wish I could spend hours and hours in that place, but it's the most touching, most, I guess, emotional museum that I've ever been to. To hear what happened prior to what happened on September 11 here in New York and around the world, to read the stories, to hear exactly the photos on the day, and then all this, I guess, little memento that they managed to keep and preserve from the World Trade Center. And these are the photos that was preserved from the World Trade Center, including that sign, which was actually exactly in the same spot. So all these mementos and everything that's in this museum is pretty much exactly where they are, where they were at the time of 9/11, which was a really touching time in the US history, which was actually 17 years ago in 8 months' time. So I know where I was on that day 17 years ago, and when I heard the news back in Australia, actually in Melbourne for when this happened, when I was in primary school, and I guess been there, and I guess just to have a look around, and it's quite a touching time, and there wasn't in museums obviously there's a lot of chatter and all that sort of things with people just interested, but it was barely a chatter at all. All you could hear is just the tour guide explain everything what happened on that day, and every single piece of material that happened. And I think people really take things for I think we take a lot of things for granted, and something like this actually make you think that we're very lucky to actually have a chance to have a look at this and to see what really went through the minds of people pre, post, and when it happened. So it's quite a really touching museum. So it's something I would highly recommend people to go to, and so it's really a really touching museum. And I would say, Andrew, I have to ask, where were you when you heard the news of 9/11 back in 2001?
Well, that's a very good question. 2001?
2001.
2001. I was actually teaching in that day in a school in South Australia, so I know exactly where I was. Don't tell me, I couldn't tell you what lesson it was at that particular point in time, but yes, it was something which reverberated around the school, and the entire school ground to a halt there as it happened. So, it's just one of those things that will live in memory, like when JFK, you went to the site of JFK's assassination. That's also another one. The day that Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon is another big one. There's a number of seminal events that those of us with long enough memories will will remember anyhow. So that's pretty cool.
And it's quite coincidence for the fact that there's two of the three things that you mentioned. I've been to those two, and both of them were actually, for me, quite touching. Just to be there to see what actually happened, and actually, even though I wasn't there with the JFK assassination in Dallas, but just being there and to hear the stories behind it from all the locals in that one, it makes it, it quite takes you back a fair bit, and to feel how lucky we are.
Yes, and the unfortunate thing is that I have no doubt that there are going to be other events that will occur that will, in a similar way, will linger in people's memories as well. And your comment about the World Trade Center being a very emotional experience, I've heard exactly the same thing. Those people who have gone and visited the concentration camps and the extermination camps over in Europe as well. So, yeah, even Passchendaele and the sites of the famous battles in World War I and World War II. So these things live on in popular memory, I suppose, as we go on. We're getting we're must apologise, ladies and gentlemen. We're picking up something in Will's microphone feed that unfortunately I haven't been able to get rid of, but we will carry on anyway. So tell us a little bit about your plans for the next couple of days, Will, and then we were going to catch up on how the visiting Australian teams who are doing various exhibition games and tournaments and so on have got on. So let's start with your agenda for the next couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely. So tomorrow I'll be going hopefully to Central Park, something hopefully a bit more exciting than we always this afternoon. That's the only actually place I haven't been to, Central Park. Been everywhere else around New York. So, and also the Statue of Liberty, which I'm going to do that on Monday before I head to another Brooklyn game on Monday.
You haven't made it to Broadway yet.
Actually, you're right. I might do that tomorrow too. Yeah. I might do that tomorrow.
Queens.
So
I'm certain there are quite a few.
I'm in Queens.
You're in Queens.
I'm in Queens.
You're in Queens. Okay. I'll have to hook you up with Andrew Zarian then, who's the guy from Queens. The guy from Queens. Anyway, yeah. So you're going to be travelling to Central Park.
Yes. So something also been recommended to do. Go to Central Park and obviously, as you mentioned, end up going down to Broadway in New York City. And that will be Sunday. That will be my schedule for Sunday. Monday, I'll be heading down to the Statue of Liberty. Not inside it, but obviously at least in view of it. And then head across to another Brooklyn game, my final NBA game before I head back home. On the Monday as Brooklyn takes on Toronto. Of course, there is no games at Madison Square Garden until actually the day I leave, so which is a bit disappointing. And then Tuesday, pretty much do my final rounds, have a look around New York, and then Wednesday is the day I leave. Turn home.
Well, it sounds like it'll be jam-packed. Hopefully you get through all of that, and looks like the weather is clearing up enough so that you won't have any issues with flights being cancelled and so on. So that's really good. Tell us what you know of the travelling tours.
Yes, absolutely. So you're probably wondering what I'm wearing the McKinnon one at the moment. Because the team I sponsored 2 years ago, which again I sponsored again this year. The girls team, of course, and they're currently still in North Carolina at the moment. So I think they're spending most of their time in North Carolina at this stage. So they've won another game since we last spoke last week. And then they've done a couple of home stays as well, which actually most of the teams have done last week. Moving on to South East Eagles, because they went from, I think they're sent to follow me. They've gone from Dallas to New York, so they're here in New York City at the moment. So they've just arrived yesterday or the day before. So that's fantastic to see them here. And I'm assuming they'll be here for a couple more days after I leave. Also, the Hawthorn Magic, they've actually also been in North Carolina. I think North Carolina has been the most popular place so far. So they've been there. They've won one game already 2 days ago. So great win for the Magic, girls and boys. And the other team that escapes my memory, Southern Peninsula, because they had a homestand, but also had 2 very good wins for the girls and boys. And also had a loss as well for the girls. So at the moment, the girls have won 2 games and 1 loss so far since we last spoke. And the boys have at the moment are defeated 2-2 at this stage. And of course, the other ones are Frankston and Geelong. They're over here at the moment. Not sure where they are exactly because I haven't got any other updates from them just yet. But other than that, there's all been pretty good stories coming out of and a lot of photos coming out, especially McKinnon, Southern Peninsula, and also Southeast Eagles. So if you're in the US touring the team, make sure you post them up so we can keep everyone up to date on this show. How everyone's travelling. Just send back home, which is great to. I'm sure the parents will be wondering where their kids are at the moment. So if they're okay, I can definitely say they're all okay at the moment. So which is they're all having a good time by looking at the photos. That is for sure, and especially the tour organisers.
I was just saying, having not pressed the right button, pressed the wrong button. But big shout out to the people supporting those tours. Obviously, Nathan from Southeast Eagles and Mark from McKinnon. So. It's,
and of course the other Mark from Southern Peninsula.
Yes, that's right. That's Mark Perotta, isn't it? I think he's gone off there as well. So all good friends of us here in Victorian basketball. So it's been really good. Now we were going to talk a little bit about the WNBL because yesterday, the second game of the second semi-final series was decided, this time between Townsville and the Sydney Flames.
Really close.
It was. Which way did it go?
I actually watched this one.
Oh, you did?
It went to a sweep. Yeah, it went to a sweep. Unfortunately for Sydney, the defending champs, they are Gonskis, because the 3-point prayer to tie the game went unanswered, and the Townsville Fire won by those 3 points there in that game, which means Townsville will host the Grand Final Series Game 1 next weekend. And Games 2 and 3 the following weekend. So how this final system's working, Andrew? Game 1 will be in Townsville on the weekend coming up, and then it will be Games 2 back in Melbourne on the Burns home court at the State Basketball Centre on Thursday. Make sure you get your tickets for that. And then I think the following, and of course that same weekend will be up in Townsville if necessary.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the teams that finish the regular season 3rd and 4th are in fact the grand finalists. So there will be a lot of discussion. There already has been on social media, but there'll be a lot of discussion about whether or not there was an advantage or a disadvantage in the composition of the structuring of the final fixtures with an away home game. So soon
I think
after
that's fair.
soon after it. Well, my concern was the lack of time between games. I don't think that the actual format was an issue. After all, we discussed this off air, but it's exactly the same format that here in Victoria, the Big V adopts as part of its final approach to final fixturing, where the lower place team has the first home game. And then, or host the first game, and then it goes to the higher place team for the second home game and a potential third. And I think that's a good way. So I don't think that the clubs themselves and the players had any issue with that. I think it was simply the time in between. But there has been quite a lot of commentary on social media and in some of the press that was a disadvantage for certainly for the Lynx and to a lesser extent for Sydney as well. Sydney, I think, just didn't play well enough in that first game. I think that was more the case, and that shows by how close this last game was.
And I think it was actually more an advantage for the Boomers because Boomers only played one game. While everyone else played more than one game in that last week, which Townsville, Sydney, and Perth all did.
Yeah, and that's the other suggestion is that maybe the Basketball Australia and the WNBL look at not fixturing double headers in that last round if they're going to continue to do that. But I think just simply a week, just roll over a week, which is quite typical in most sporting codes, is to have that extra week of preparation would have solved all of that. But that's not how it happened this year, and the reality is it's going to be the Townsville versus Boomers. That will be a cracker because you know what? Right. Townsville has got the wood on the Boomers this season.
They do, but we've seen already how unpredictable this final series and this season have been. So Boomers, they've got a chance. They have a chance, and I think they've got players who know how to win grand finals. Obviously, Townsville does as well. But I think the major factor will be Jenna, Liz, and probably Beck or Maddie for the Boomers taking on the likes of Susie, Kayla. I think the difference will end up being the tools and, of course, the guards for both teams. I don't think the bench. I think bench are going to be pretty even. I think it's more of the starting lineups, especially the matchup between Susie and Liz and Jenna and Kayla. I think those two will end up being the difference between the two teams.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with you. I think that's going to be very much the case, but one of the things that's been very interesting in watching the two teams play over the season is that for Townsville, it's been different players every time that have stood up and been the difference. In that very first game, which of course was hosted down here in Melbourne, it was Kayla George. She was the destroyer.
That's right.
In the second, in the second game up in Townsville, it was Susie Baktovic. So the thing is that the Townsville team is incredibly deep, and they can if one player is not firing, they've got others who will pick it up.
And the one thing about that, what people don't understand, the first two times the two teams met was the first one, Jenna didn't play because of an injury. The second time, Liz didn't play because she got suspended. So, end up both of them being pretty close games. So it'd be interesting to see how the two teams face up when they actually play each other with both of them have full strength teams. Because as I said, even though Townsville got to have the upper hand on the third one, but I think both Liz and Jenna played really subpar games. So, and as I said, Jenna didn't play the first one, Liz didn't play the second one, and then the third one both had subpars. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. So I wouldn't really take too much on the first two games, more than the third game.
Yeah, well, I'm going to disagree with you on that one, because to me, whoever wins the first game is going to win the series.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the case. So if Townsville wins, they'll win it in the 2 or 3. If the Boomers win the first one again, I think they'll win it in 2. I doubt that they will. Coming back home to a packed stadium, and it will be a packed stadium. It wouldn't surprise me if it's not actually a sellout on that particular game, on that Thursday night game. Certainly up in Townsville, it's going to be absolutely rocking and rolling. It'll be firing up there in terms of the crowd and so on. But they are very passionate in support of the Townsville Fire, and they will absolutely pack the stadium out. But I'm expecting down here in Melbourne that, and looking at the amount of traffic on social media about it as well, and people asking for tickets. Tickets, by the way, will go on sale for the Melbourne game. They'll go on sale on, I think it's Tuesday morning, maybe a bit earlier, but that's trybooking.com /boomers. I think will get you. Is it .com or .com.au?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, .com.
No, .com.
.com. So trybooking.com/boomers, and I'm certain that the tickets for the Townsville game are probably already up on sale as well.
Correct.
So
that's correct.
But it will be full. It will both venues will absolutely be they'll be a cauldron for whichever team is visiting. They will be tough. The noise, and so I'm expecting that if the Boomers get up in that first game, I don't see them being rolled in the second. If I think if Townsville wins the first game, to me it's a line ball whether they win in 2 or whether they win in 3. But that's where I'm going with that.
And obviously both teams are the top attendance. I think they've been the top 2 attendance for at least 3 years, 3 seasons already. So it's going to be a fantastic crowd. I think these 2 teams that deserve it to be in the grand final, and especially their fans, they both deserve to see their teams make the grand final, especially the crowd attendance that they keep coming in, week out, pretty much game in, game out throughout the home and away seasons, and obviously through the playoffs. So I think both fans fully deserve to see their teams make the grand final, and these 2 teams deserve to be in it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. It's going to be really good there. Now, talking about other teams that deserve to be in the grand finals, Melbourne United almost let me down on the weekend as well. So they a very, very narrow win over Illawarra. And I'll tell you what, I was watching the game. You said you were watching the game from Townsville. I missed that one. I misread the time and was expecting it to be a little bit later. So I got myself organised to watch. So I did see the NBL games, and look, to be perfectly honest, I'd virtually, was about to turn it off at halftime, but all of a sudden, they decided to play and came back from an 18-point deficit to win by a couple in the death knells of that final quarter, and it was very interesting that with a chance to tie, they were 3 points down. Illawarra was 3 points down. And with a chance to tie and only about 4 seconds left, Rob Beveridge inserted. I'm having a mental blank. Let me just go there. He inserted a three-point specialist Oscar Foreman.
Yeah, I think I know.
Yeah, there you go, Oscar Foreman.
Yes.
I apologise, Isaac. He inserted Oscar Foreman into the game, and it nearly came off. They ran a beautiful inbound play. They kicked the ball through top of the key, reversed it over to the opposite deep corner. Oscar put the ball up, and it just did not drop for him. But they got the offensive rebound, and believe it or not, he had a further attempt, all inside 4 seconds. It was quite phenomenal. So they could have drawn the game, Illawarra, but they were, through the vast majority of the game, they absolutely looked the goods. And that would have... I had made the comment to you that they were done and dusted. They weren't going to be able to make finals. If they had won this game, they also, like Cairns, would have had the mathematical chance of getting there. But Felix, coming in for his second game, he ended up with 19 and 10 with I think what was it? Yeah, 3 assists. So. Yep. And he was probably the dominant player for Melbourne when it was needed. He really made the difference. So a great pickup at the death knell of the season there by Melbourne to replace Prather, who of course is out with injury. Right. So that was good. And Conga for the Hawks he was fantastic as well. Really, it was himself, Nick Kay, and Rodney Clark. They were the three. They didn't get enough support from the other players on the team to really make all the difference there. But that was where they went.
It's quite funny that you mentioned about the 18-point deficit in that game, because obviously being over here. At the moment, it's wildcard weekend over here in the US in the NFL, and actually one team did pull it off from 18 points down to win the game down here. Because you know how I mentioned late last week that I went to see the Titans play and they made the playoffs. Well, the Titans were in the playoffs, and they played the Chiefs down at Kansas City, and in the wildcard game today. And they came from 21-3 down at half-time to defeat Kansas City to progress to the next round, 22-21, after being down 18 points. So it was the most incredible. I think this week, for some reason this week, it's just been full of upsets. Every team that you expect to win didn't win. At the moment, I'm just watching another wildcard game. Looks like the favourite's going to lose again at home. So for some reason, it's not just here in the US, but it's also back in Australia that all the favourites have all lost. So it's just the most unusual week, I would say, in sports.
Yeah, well, and just breaking news, another pun coming up. The Breakers have just closed out their game against the Cairns Taipans, so that is the end of any hope that the Taipans have got to make the finals. 82-69. So yeah, so that's quite a big one. Now there is talk about the Breakers bringing in a new player as well. That hasn't happened for this game, but. They obviously didn't need to. Look, Kirk Penny has hit 11 points. Tom Abercrombie 16, Newball 12, and Sousa 19. So they've been the leading scorers there for the Breakers, and unfortunately, nobody really stepped up for the Taipans. Weeks and Glidden 15 each. Evans Jr. 17 points, but they were basically the key scorers for them. The other game of note. Yeah, the other game of note, of course, was the Sydney Kings playing the Wildcats. Now, this was a much better game than the score indicates.
Yeah.
It ended up with
I
the
did
Kings.
actually see a bit of that.
Yeah, the Kings went down 68-76, but it was a much closer game until right to the end there as well. So, Andrew Gaze is going to come out of the season. I think he's going to, be a lot balder than he started. Is my suggestion. He was already grey, so he's not going to be able to go grey. But I think he's pulling his hair out, trying to work out where he's going to get a win from. But it was a really enthralling contest. And to give you an idea of how close it actually was, Wildcat, the first quarter, Kings 19, Wildcats 22. Then the Wildcats extended the lead by going a 15-23 quarter. But then the Kings came back in the third quarter and absolutely thumped the Wildcats 21-14, and so that put them within contention. It really did. Randall suddenly woke up and started to play. Some fantastic stuff from Blanchfield. There was some nice stuff from him as well. And Brad Newley, ever so strong along the way as well. But then all of a sudden, a 13-17 point final quarter, and they were out of the game completely. So, it could have been a lot closer, but I think they got within 2 or 3 points at one stage. There
3 points.
3 points in the final quarter. And it should have been a lock. So, again, really going to be very, very interesting to see where everything happens with the NBL. Of course, finals still a couple of weeks away, so there's still a few more games to go. But the ladder at the moment is Melbourne 18 on a 12-6. Sorry, on a 12-6 record, tied with Perth on New Zealand now after this game 11-6, Adelaide 10-8, Cairns 9-11, Illawarra 8-10, Brisbane 7-12, and Sydney 5-15. So it's not like any team has gone through undefeated at all, and there's and no team has going to have to drop their DAX because they haven't won a game. They've all been competitive along the way. But I'm still sticking with my Final Four. That's
right. And Brisbane and Adelaide are playing tonight, your time, there at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, and I think this will completely end any hopes if Adelaide can pull it off against the Bullets, which they should, but it's in Brisbane, so
yeah, it's actually a 30. What's that? That's a 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock start, Brisbane time. So that actually is a television game, and it's both on Fox Sports and also on SBS. So if you're watching it, is that right? 1300? That's what it's listed as.
3 o'clock. 3
o'clock.
Time.
Sorry, yeah, I'm looking at the time, and there's a little line. Yeah, 3 o'clock. So it's a 4 o'clock in Melbourne game.
No, it's 3 o'clock Melbourne, 2 o'clock Brizzy.
All right, okay. But I'll just go to you for the fixturing.
It's 3 o'clock Melbourne. So it's 3 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time. So it's 3 o'clock Melbourne time, 2 o'clock in Brisbane. But everything else is correct. It is the Fox Sport SBS. But as I said, that could pretty much end it if Adelaide wins.
Yeah. Now the other thing we said we were going to have a look at today was a quick run round the Aussie men in college as well. So we'll try and catch up with the girls a little bit later on before you get back to Australia and so on. But what we've got is a number of players have been absolutely setting the world alight, and we'll talk about those. Starting with the Arizona Wildcats, Kanal Pinder, again a Victorian there. He's had a quiet season along the way, but his team is actually sitting on top of the Pac-12 conference with an 11-3 record. Down in Baylor, and of course one of the reasons why we're interested in all of these is that quite a number of these players have come through the Waverley program as well, so we know them quite well. And one of those is Joe Luau-Akwil Jr., and he's of course playing for Baylor. He's also, I think he's a Longhorns player here as well in his domestic
Texas,
league.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, you said Longhorn. I just thought Texas straight away.
No. We're talking about the Longhorns basketball club in
that's right.
in Melbourne. But Joe's doing really well. He's averaging, would you believe it, averaging a double of 16.1 points and 10 rebounds, which is fantastic. So his highest score so far has been against Savannah State, which is where he picked up 31 points, 20 boards and 3 blocks, would you believe? So quite huge there for him as well.
Just let everyone know, Baylor's in Texas. It's in Waco, Texas, just south of. I should know this because I was just in Dallas. It's just south of Dallas, about an 2-hour drive from Dallas. So, we want to know where Baylor is.
Yeah, a couple of the guys that I'm not very familiar with is Callum Barker and Jaden Hodgson, who are playing for Bradley Braves as well. So they're doing okay. Hodgson's shooting at 48% from the 3-point line with just under one make a game. So he's actually impressing. He's only a sophomore, while Barker's a junior. Hasn't had a lot of time on court at the moment. Another Victorian. And the guys out at Casey will be following his progress as well. His older brother, of course, came through the Waverley program, but Bosco has embedded himself out there at Casey. Is Bosco Costa at the Bryant Bulldogs? Now they're struggling.
That's right.
They are struggling.
Yeah,
but,
that's a surprise.
Yeah. But Bosco is having a career year. He's averaging 11 and a bit points, 11.3 points, and just under 4 rebounds a game, which is not bad. So he's had a couple of double doubles and so on. Another big man. Now the Australian big men are doing extremely well this season. There's an article on the Pick and Roll about them. So one of the really imposing figures on the court is Grant Antovich. He's coming off the bench for the Golden Bears as a freshman. So I would expect, similar to some of the other Australian bigs that have been around the place, that he will probably, when he gets into his junior and senior year, this is when he's really going to come into his own for the Bears as well. He averaged 20 minutes a game pre-Christmas. I doubt that during the regular season he'll get as much time as well. Again, another Waverley junior, Hugh Baxter's playing for the Colgate Raiders. So he's doing really well. He's only played 4 games so far for the Raiders. Mind you, this I haven't been able to catch up with the last weekend's stats, so it may be a little bit more than 4. But he's again, I think he's only a freshman, isn't he, or a freshman or a sophomore?
No.
Yeah.
I think he's a sophomore.
Sophomore. So
I think he was there last year.
Yeah. I think you could be right. Over in Denver with the Pioneers, Abiola Akinala has had a couple of good games as well. So he's doing that, but he's He's really only getting limited minutes there. And Noah Thomas with Drake has been outstanding in terms of his 3-point shooting, but again, not getting huge numbers. Jack Perry, a Melbourne Tigers alumni,
That's
and
right.
Mason Peatling. Now, Mason, is he Bulleen? Can't remember.
Danny Nong.
Danny Nong, yeah.
Yeah.
And Jesse Hunt, also, I think he's also another Victorian as well. They're in
That's
the
right. Yes.
yeah, they're in the Eastern Washington Eagles side, and
A few Australians in that.
yeah,
Over there.
and so they're getting reasonable minutes there as well. Perry sitting second in the side for assists. Peatling's notched up a career high 19 points on December the 10th, but not played too much since then. Whereas Hunt, after a quiet couple of years, so he's, I think, a junior, he's now sitting second in his team, averaging about 8.9 points per game as well. The team itself is not doing particularly well, but the boys are.
Okay.
Down in Florida, see, we've got loads of these guys floating around. Down in Florida, Gorokak.
Don't worry, there's a few girls too.
Yeah, I know. Gorokak he's in his sophomore season. He's doubled his points and rebound averages along the way, and the Gators are actually leading the Southeastern Conference at the moment.
Well, actually, I saw him last night on TV.
Oh, did you? Yep.
Yeah, he played a fantastic game last night for Florida, and a pretty great game for Florida too. So a great win there for the Gators.
Yeah.
And they won convincingly.
Now, this is a team I know nothing about, the Gardner-Well Bulldogs. Do you know where they're from?
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
No.
Anyway, and I don't know this player. I don't believe he's a Victorian anyway. So Jamal Roberto, he managed to come out on the first game of this for their first win with a season high of 13 points. Then he was out for 4 games and came back with a couple of double-digit games in the last. So they're now sitting fifth he's sitting fifth in for Gardner-Webb in steals and so on. The Grand Canyon.
I do know we're going to win.
Yeah.
Sorry, I do know we're going to win. Yes.
All right, don't
It's
hold
North
back.
Carolina.
It's North Carolina.
North Carolina.
There we go.
Yeah, near Charlotte.
Yeah. And let me guess, the Grand Canyon Antelopes, you know where they are?
Yeah, I do know. Where is it? Because there's a Australian girl that's currently playing over there as well.
Let me guess, they
Get back to me.
close to the Grand Canyon. So
Yeah, it actually is. But I can't exactly remember exactly which state it is in.
So they're quite good. They've got three Australians on their squad: Gerard Martin, Matt Jackson, and Parker Dale. So they're actually quite okay. It's been a consistent season for Gerard Martin, and he's made scores for all but 2 of the games so far. So with a season high of 10 points along the way. George Blajevic is down at the Hartford Hawks. He's not doing as well this season than he did last season. His best game has been 10.6 rebounds and 4 assists on December the 4th. So we'll see how it's going there. Now, a team that I'm particularly interested in having one of the Waverley players go through there is the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. And of course,
quite a few Australian players in there.
Only one.
For the girls. Sorry,
the girls they do.
The
girls they do. Yeah. So there's only one in the boys at the moment, and that's Jack Purchase. And it was a good call.
Yes,
It's obvious. Yeah. So it's obviously been a good call for Jack to go over there. They've got the second best record in the Big West at the moment, along the way, and he's I think he's a sophomore this year. No, sorry, a junior this year.
junior, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think he's a junior this year.
So I don't think I've seen him back in about 2-3 years.
Yeah,
since he went over. So I think he might be a junior.
Yeah, so he's
don't quote me on it.
He's placed fifth in the team in terms of points, second for rebounds, second for assists, and he's got a season high of 22 so far. Another Waverley alumni, Deng Adil. He's one of our favourites, and again also a Longhorn as well. And at the South Sudanese Summer Slam, lots of conversation about how Deng is going over there with the Cardinals, and he's been exceptional this year. Of course, picking up where Matthew Mango was leading the team in terms of being the captain of the team and so on. So Deng Adel has taken on that leadership role. He's not not as the captain, but he's showing that sort of consistency on the court, and he has.
Junior?
No, he would be. Oh, sorry. Yes, he would be a junior this season as well.
Yeah.
So he's not scored anything less than 9 points so far, and has a season high at this point of 21. So he's doing reasonably well. Another player, Diop Reith, is with LSU Tigers. He's having a standout game. He's averaging 12.8 points per game, a season high of 30 on December the 10th along the way. So he's doing extremely well along the way. Harry Froling moved to Marquette.
He did.
He moved to Marquette. So he wasn't able to play until mid-December, but having been cleared to play, he's now averaging 3.2 points, 3.8 rebounds, and 1.4 assists. So, again, he's a big man. It will take time for him to learn the systems and so on. Away we go. Another Victorian.
Yeah, just going back to Jack Purchase.
Yep.
Sorry, just going back to Jack Purchase. I just had a look. He's actually a junior.
He's a junior. Yeah,
at Hawaii.
That's what we said, wasn't it? Yeah.
We weren't sure, but
that's true. I've got to that is true. That is true. So down in Miami, Dengak has joined Dejan Vasiljevic along the way. Dejan, he's a lights-out shooter, absolute lights-out shooter. He's averaging 10.3 points per game, and he's shooting at about 40% from outside. So he's having a good season along the way. We're nearly there.
I'll let you have a bit of a breather because I just got a final score for NFL fans. The Atlanta Falcons progressed with a 26-13 win over the LA Rams at home, while the Tennessee Titans earlier today, 22-21 win over Kansas City in the wildcard game. So both home teams both fell today. So unfortunately, the Chiefs fans and the Rams fans, your team have been eliminated in the first week of the playoffs. So back to you.
So Fabian Krizovic is at Montana Grizzlies, and he's struggling with fouls and so on. So, but he is still averaging 4.4 points and 4.3 rebounds per contest. Now, Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers. This is not the same as St. Mary's. Okay, Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers. No. Has got Jonah Antonio in there along the way, and he's been averaging 15.7 points as a freshman, which is amazing. So is
he Victorian?
I don't know.
Because that last name sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Don't know where he's from. I can find out, but I don't know. Makuach Malowich has 18 points had 18 points in the opening game of the season for the New Mexico Lobos. He hasn't been able to match that in the rest of the competition so far, but he's still averaging about 6 points per contest. Gabe Hadley down in New Mexico as well, but this time with the Aggies, New Mexico State. He's only played limited minutes along the way, but he's again getting on the boards for them. Another Waverley ex-player, youth league player, Gorgeous Dow, signed off from 2017 with 12.6 boards and 2 assists in his last game. He's getting big minutes, but he's not really making a big impact for the Huskies, who are struggling for consistency at the moment along the way. And Jacob Rigoni over at Quinnipiac Bobcats is had a couple of really good games where he's knocked down 17 plus points, but the Bobcats have actually struggled through the season so far, and he hasn't had a lot of court time along the way. St Clara Broncos, Kai Healy has had a very, very limited contribution so far, and the team itself is struggling with a 4-10 record. But here you go, another Waverley player, Matt McCarty, one of my favourite players along the way. He's a big.
Did he play youth league a couple of years ago?
Played youth league. He played under 18s, under 16s, under 18s, and so on along the way. He's averaging 7.6 points per game, sitting fourth on the offensive table for the Dons, and he's shooting at 46 from the field as the most efficient offensive player for San Francisco. So he's always been that really good attacking, like knowing where, like aware of where the hoop is, especially in offensive, but also a defensive side of things. I noticed when he played in the youth league comp. Yeah, absolutely. And look, he was outstanding at under 18s and so on. And like most big men, he's sort of maturing into his body a little bit later on as well. But great kid, and it's really fun to see him do well in the Big W competition, Big West.
That's right.
Isaac White. He's over at Stanford, of course, with Alana Smith.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Talk about Lana sometimes soon.
Yeah. So he's started off his season with a 17 point performance, and he's had a season high in late November of 20 points as well. So he's averaging 9 points. 7 points and 1.9 rebounds a game, so that's really good. I'm going to come back to the St Mary's Gales. I want to talk about the other ones. There's still a few of them to go.
Yes. That's all right. Keep on rolling.
So so TCU Horned Frogs. Well, these are the guys that you were down to visit. And what you didn't do was you didn't catch up with the boys as well, and you should have, because there's a couple of them down there, and also from Victoria as well.
I do know a bit about the boys, because I actually spoke to the media person on the same day I was actually watching the women's game. So I do know a bit about the boys at the TCU Horned Frogs.
Yeah,
and actually they're expecting to have a really successful season for the Horned Frogs at the moment. Yeah,
so Lat Mayan hasn't. He's a freshman. He hasn't played that. But on the other hand, Kuat Noi, he's started with 3 double-digit scoring performances, a career high 16th on early December, and is shooting 57 from the field and 47 from beyond the arc overall. So he's lapping it up over there. So along the way.
And they really highly respect him as a player too. So they really highly respect him as a player. So definitely want to watch out for in the next couple of seasons.
as is Chimmer Monkey over at UC Davis Davis Aggies. He has absolutely impressed. I think he's a senior this year.
Yes, he is.
So he's helped them get to sit first. They're sitting first in the Big West Conference with a 10-5 record as well. So that's pretty good there as well. So he's had 9 double-doubles for the season, and he's not a huge man. He's actually quite a small man. So he's one of the guys that when you go and look at him, you go, right, okay, is he a player or not? But he's a player. Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Yes, he is.
UL Monroe's Warhawks, and both Aussies have played every game for those. Sam Alabakakis sitting on 3.5 points and 2.5 rebounds per game, while senior Sam McDonald is second in the club for 14.9 points. He's notched up a season high 28 point shooting, 6 from 6 from the 3-point line, which is pretty impressive as well. University of Las Vegas Rebels has Jay Green, a freshman who comes from Sydney. Along the way, he's only played two games for them so far, so he's getting limited minutes. Expect him to come into the team in his second and third year. The UT, I'm assuming that's University of Tennessee, Rio Grande Valley Vaqueros, has John Kronomak. He's had his best effort has been 11 points with 2 assists along the way. And the San Antonio Roadrunners, also from Tennessee, James Ringolt has only played 6 games for them so far, going into the regular season. But season high so far of 12 points in 12 minutes, so he's doing okay. And before we go back to... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just to interrupt you. You just mentioned about UT. Did we mention that was University of Tennessee?
Yeah, I think, or Texas, is it? Must be Texas.
Well, if it's Tennessee, is it in San Antonio or in Texas?
It's UT Rio Grande and UT San Antonio. So I'm assuming it's Texas, actually.
Texas, yeah. I was going to say, it was Tennessee. They've just knocked over a Kentucky team, which is they've become the first team to beat a Kentucky team in a long time. Sorry, wrong team. Sorry.
Yeah, and Winthrop. Just before we go back to St Mary's, because that's the real cream of the crop is happening at St Mary's at the moment. There are 3 Aussies at Winthrop. 2 freshmen, and Tom Pipovac and Kyle Zunick, and of course Xavier Cooks. Now, Cooks is dominating in his senior year with 15.5 points, sitting first in the team for offensive production. 8.7 rebounds, also first. 3.6 assists, also first. 1.4 steals and 1.3 blocks. So again, also first for his team. So he is the man for Winthrop Eagles at the moment. Now, going back to St Mary's Gales. 6 Australians in their roster this season. And of course, we know about Emmett Nah. He's an real offensive threat. He's averaging 11.5 points along the way. Tanner Krebs, also, so both of these, Victorians. He's averaging 7.7 points. Jock Perry is shooting at 64% in limited minutes for 3.5 points. Kyle Clark has only played limited minutes due to knee issues, but the Waverley Junior, who due to education, his education stuff, moved down to Geelong for his under 18 years is Jock Landale, and he has picked up the West Coast Conference Player of the Week for the third time, and averaging 21.8 points and 9.8 rebounds. The lowest production that he's had in the season has been 13 points. Since then, and that was the first game, since then he's recorded 9 double-doubles to be the highest scoring centre in the nation. So he's having an outstanding season. Absolutely outstanding season. So basically he played, I think he started playing in under 14s. He then took time off at the end of when he was top age under 16 to go down to Geelong Grammar and Timbertop, and then came back for his year 11 and year 12 years at Geelong Grammar, and then played for Geelong. But we will definitely claim him as a Waverley player. Well, he lives in it. Yes. His parents live in East Melbourne, so why not?
Okay, so fair enough.
All that. And he played his domestic through the same competition as well. So there you go. I apologise for the length of all of that, but there are so many Aussies.
I was going to say, listen to the girls one tomorrow or whenever we do the girls one.
Yeah. There are so many Aussies playing over in Div 1 at the moment, and that's not including any of the Div 2 or the Div 3, any of the NAIA players as well. So,
that's right.
We do that. A good place, ladies and gentlemen, to follow the progress of all the guys and girls over in the States is the Pick and Roll. A big shout out to the Pick and Roll and Damien Arsenis, who of course keeps an eye on the progress of the college players. So great work from him.
You just mentioned about especially the great work they've just done, the Pick and Roll, and you mentioned about the article right at the start about the big guys. Do you think now it's becoming not so guard orientated? Now it's all about the tools and the bigs now, or so it's now gone back in a bit of a reverse. Not reverse, like a bit of a round circle side of things. Now it's gone to a dominant forward centre game now.
I don't know. The thing is that, and you'll see this in the NBA as well, is that now they're looking for big men who can also shoot from outside. So, and Dirk Nowitzki is a good example of that. He's probably set the bar as far as that's concerned along the way. And if we look at guards, Ben Simmons is a good example. In most teams, Ben Simmons would be played in a 3-4 position. He's got that sort of height, and he can play that. But Brett Brown is playing him as a point guard. So I think the skill levels of the bigs are just going up, and coaches are just simply adjusting their tactics for whatever the is appropriate to the personnel that they've got there. But certainly we've got some bigs, Australian bigs, that are starting to do very, very well over in the States, as opposed to perhaps what we've traditionally heard about, which is the success of the guards. But you've got to remember also that Andrew Bogut led the way for Australian players and being the first Australian player to be drafted number 1 in the NBA. So he's a big. So it's just who's there. It's just who's there, I think. But there we go. There we go. Now, we have had a very, very long session today. So we're going to try. We'll try and make certain that we have an update on the girls for you as soon as we possibly can. You're going to have a great day wandering around New York and the outside of the Statue of Liberty. Now, maybe you'll
Yes.
find the entrance this time.
No, that was the Empire State Building. I couldn't
Oh, the
find.
Empire State Building. Oh, okay. I apologise. Well, you know, I believe the
I'm
entrance.
still.
Yeah. So we'll do all of that. All right. So any last things that you want to bring up there, Will, before we sign off for the day?
Yeah, we will. I need to give a shout out to one of my other sponsored teams at the moment, which I've been doing as my podcast as well on my shows. Of course, one of the cheerleading clubs are currently fundraising for the Wells, of course, coming up in Orlando in April, July. So make sure you click on the SmashFM Facebook page and Twitter for all the details how you can donate, because they need your help going to Orlando, which is a cost for the World Championships of the cheerleading side of things in Disneyland. So just want to give them a shout out there, as well as,
And the team is?
It's a Melbourne Cheer Academy. The team is the Phoenix. It's the second year they've gone over there for the second time, hopefully to finish first. They came so close to being in the placing last year. So hopefully they'll go that couple of steps further, because they're based out in Box Hill North. Make sure I gave them the play so that I've done that. And of course, for everyone back home, looking forward to my last week here and giving some more news, especially about the girls. And we'll hopefully have a chat about the NBA Australian players, how they're traveling, because they've done some fantastic things so far over here in the US.
They certainly have, and a good example of that is to watch the highlights from the Philadelphia 76ers game against the Detroit Pistons. So if you
Correct.
see that floating around, I watched that game yesterday. If you saw that, there's some outstanding bits of action. But from us here in Melbourne and in New York, that's it for the day. We will see you at some stage tomorrow. Again, if for some reason this Facebook link has not worked, we'll upload the video to YouTube and share it again on Facebook as soon as possible. See you tomorrow. Bye.
See you tomorrow.